Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast is here, and of course, it is the final football at 4 before the Eagles do report. Now, tomorrow they just report. There is no practice tomorrow. The practices begin on Wednesday. Nick Sirianni will talk on Wednesday morning for the first time, and we'll have that press conference for you here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Let's bring Geoff Mosher in. This is the final football at 4 before the Eagles report. That means the summer's over, Mosher. That's it. The summer's over.
Don't you do that to me, Michael Gill. Do you not do that to me.
Well, we started about a month ago, and it was like, we got about a month to training camp. And now we are at training camp. The players will report tomorrow. What does that mean? They just kind of get there. There is no functions or practices. This is just the first day that everybody has to get to the NovaCare. I'd imagine they got to get weighed in, all that stuff to make sure that they're not overweight, get fined, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. And then, they take that. I think they still do the test, the fitness tests and everything like that. You got to pass that. There have been years, Mike, where players have not been able to start the first day of practice or had to be put on PUP. Because or NFI, I forget which one it would be, but because they did not make it through the fitness test. But I think in the last few years they've been fine with that.
All right, each of us today have our 5 biggest stories going into training camp. These are the 5 things that we will both be watching. Moshe has his list of 5. I have my list of 5 things. So let's start with number 5, Geoff Mosher, of things that you are intrigued by at Eagles training camp.
Well, everything starts up front for the Eagles on both defense and offense, right? So when we start, I'm going to go to defense because that side has lost the most starters and was the number 1 ranked defense in the last year. And there's no question that Milton Williams was an enormous part of what they do. And they have to make up, as I've said many times, not only the snaps that he played, but the high-level production within those snaps that he played. And the people who are tasked with making that up are Moro Ajomo, who was a 7th-round pick. You've got Jordan Davis, who the coaches have said, they liked what they saw from a pass rush standpoint over the last few weeks and postseason of last year. And, of course, the rookie Ty Robinson. So that's where I'd start, is sort of that second interior rusher in the 4-man rush next to Jalen Carter. Who's it going to be?
All right, number 5 for me, I kind of threw this all-encompassing because I wrote just how will they all materialize, right guard, corner, safety, D tackle, linebacker. I think the camp battles, there's a lot of competition. So the competition at camp, coming off of a Super Bowl and all of these up-for-grabs spots add to competition. So the camp battles and competition would be my number 5 thing that I'm watching for. Look, these could all be individual stories, but I think there's so many other stories that I just lumped in the camp battles as my number 5 because I think competition is good, especially for a team that won a Super Bowl. No complacency here, Geoff Mosher.
Oh, not at all. You can't be complacent. And I like that you started off in a big picture. I zeroed in on one spot. You went to a big picture one. I like that. I'm going to go a little big picture, too, on my next few.
Okay, number 4. Let's go. Geoff Mosher, what is your 4th story that you'll be watching starting at training camp?
So, and I don't. We'll be watching it, and I don't know how much of an answer we'll be able to get. So this is sort of a entering training camp, but really about the season, is the concept of opening up the offense, the pass offense under Kevin Patullo. What does that mean? What does it look like? Right? How do you open up this offense and continue to also be a dominant ground game? And when you do open up the offense, how successful will it be? Because other coordinators and coaches have tried to do this, and it's not always worked. So I'm very curious to see what that looks like.
All right. That's a good one. I have one that's similar to that, but a little different coming up in just a little bit here. So we'll get to that one first. Let me give you my number 4. My number 4 is Jalen Carter. Will he continue to get better? This was the guy last year who kind of led your defense in year 2. What kind of player is he in year 3? That 3rd year is really the big jump. Does he take another huge jump from game record? What's the next level do you get to? And if he gets to that next level, what does that mean for this Eagles defense? They lost a lot of pieces. He loses Milton Williams. They've lost a lot of pieces. But what if Carter takes another big jump forward in year number 3? I'm going to be watching what kind of Jalen Carter the Eagles will be getting in his 3rd season in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, he played at such a high level, Mike, but he's so young. And I know that, Adam and I have talked about this on the podcast. There are certain things that people have watched him play say he can even get better on, whether it's, right now he sort of gets by on being this freak of nature and violent hands. But once he starts to put technique and, other things together, he's going to get double teamed even more this year, learning how to beat those. He's going to be, if he can do those things, he'll be an absolute monster of a player.
All right, that's our number 4. Let's go to number 3. Geoff Mosher, 3rd biggest story you're watching at Eagles training camp.
Yeah, and last year, it didn't take too long to start to notice that you weren't noticing Bryce Huff, right? The big ticket free agent signing. So you even though you can't hit the quarterback, you get a pretty good idea of what you got on the edges just based on explosion and one-on-ones and things like that. And this edge group, to me, Mike, really comes under the microscope. 11 total starts between Jalix Hunt and Nolan Smith. I cannot remember the last time the Eagles had an edge tandem that had such little experience, right? You're trying to replace Josh Sweat, you're trying to replace Brandon Graham, and you drafted both of these guys pretty high. They ended the season on a really high note, but now everybody's had all offseason to kind of prepare for them. And as we say, progress in the NFL is not always linear. Sometimes you take a step back. Sometimes you're never as good as you were year 1 or year 2. It just happens. So I'm very, very interested to see the developments that Jalix Hunt in particular, but Hunt and Nolan Smith make here starting in camp.
All right, great minds think alike. Number 3 for me, on the edge. Will Jalix Hunt and Nolan Smith take that next step to become star players? I mean, Hunt and Smith, I think both had very good short bursts last year. Smith came on really in November and then really came on in the playoffs. Hunt came on after the Brandon Graham injury and was very good in the playoffs as well. But can both of those guys sustain a full season of production? I think that sounds like a story you're watching as well. Do these guys both become legitimate full-time 17-game pass rushers? I had questions about Nolan last year. Hey, his rookie year, he did nothing. The first half of last year, he didn't do much. And now he has put himself on the map to where we say, hey, is this guy a double-digit sack guy? Is he becoming one of these great pass rushers in the league? This is the year we'll be looking for that. And Jalix Hunt's a complete wild card. I mean, this guy, 3rd-round pick. Many people didn't think he'd make an impact at all last year, Geoff Mosher. He didn't only make an impact, he has now forged himself into the conversation for starting edge rusher on this team. So on the edge, big story for me. We agree on that. Plus, how does Josh Uche and Azeez Ojulari factor in, if at all, on the edge for this defense?
Yeah, it's a great point because in a best case scenario, all 4 of those guys are playing really well. That gives Vic not only a good rotation, but maybe even some optionality. If someone proves that they can move inside like Jalix Hunt, and you can throw 3 edges on the field, one of them playing the inside rusher position like Brandon Graham did in 2017, that just could present a different look that teams might struggle with. So really looking forward to seeing who emerges there.
All right, number 2, Geoff Mosher, what do you got?
Number 2, I went a little bit big picture and sort of like what you talked about, job competition, but specifically the prove it guys. There are a couple of guys this year that have to really prove it. Obviously, one of them is Keely Ringo. Another one is Sidney Brown, Tyler Steen at right guard, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. at linebacker opposite Zach Bond. So these are guys that you're looking at because the microscope is on them at this stage of their careers to either seize the job or the Eagles have to kind of play some one-year veterans around them that may not make them as good as they want to be.
Our number 2 for me is a tough one because it is Jahad Campbell and what is his injury situation and what will his role be? I mean, I want to watch him in training camp. I don't even know if he's going to be able to be out there. When is he going to be out there? And when he is out there, what is he doing? What room is he in? Is he hanging out with the linebackers? Is he in the edge room? What is Jahad Campbell and when will he be able to play? Geoff, you could talk more about this, but last year Cooper DeJean missed time and that caused him to miss the first quarter of the season. Is Campbell going to be behind? Is this going to limit the versatility that many people think that he has? When will he be out there? Is he going to be out there Wednesday? Is he going to be out there ready to play in any of the preseason games so that he can find his niche and role? That's got to be one of the big stories, is your first-round pick that many people thought could be a top 10 player fell to you because of injury. How will that injury affect the 2025 start to his season?
Yeah, it's a great question. And some people, I think it was Vic Fangio who said he's not even going to be ready until August. But guess what? August is next Friday. So if it's early August, that could be a lot sooner than we think. If it's late August, then we're looking at 5 to 6 more weeks of seeing him. So, they were intentionally, I'm sure, vague in not saying when in August, but everybody will look forward to seeing him get out there. And then when he does, how does he acclimate into this defense? Absolutely is a big storyline.
By the way, August 7th, the Eagles will have their first preseason game against the Bengals, and you can hear that game right here on your home for Eagles football. 97.3 ESPN. Will Jahid Campbell play in that game? I would assume not. Even if he's back, I would assume that they want to take it slow with him and that he would not be on the field in that first preseason game. So Campbell, number 2 for me, which takes us to the top of our list, the number 1 biggest story that we're both watching at Eagles training camp. Geoff Mosher, what do you got?
All right. Well, I call this category repeat offenders. But I mean this in a good way when I say offenders. I want to see if a number of guys who played out of their mind last year and emerged at the top of their positions can carry this over, or if that was a flash in the pan. And I'm sure you can imagine who I'm speaking of, but obviously one of them is Zach Baun. Another one is Quinyon Mitchell. Another one is Cooper DeJean. And then even the quarterback at the end of the year, he may not have had the greatest regular season, but boy, did he play out of his mind in the Super Bowl, right? Jalen Hurts. So can these 4 guys have the kind of, 3 have the kind of year and one just kind of piggyback off of when he was last on the field, because this team's going to need it. Again, when you have as much turnover as the Eagles have, you really can't afford to have guys taking a step back or plateauing at certain positions. And I think Baun, Cooper, Mitchell, I'll really have my eyes on, only because we've seen this a little bit with corners where they have some early success and then maybe the next year they're not as good and then they have to kind of build themselves back up. So it's a tough position to play, and everybody has seen him now and they've seen his strengths and his weaknesses. So very, very, my eyes are on those 4 guys. Can they continue to do it the way they did last year?
I definitely think the Baun one is going to be intriguing to me. Hey, this guy came out of nowhere to have an all-pro level season that got him paid. Can he play at that level again? We asked that a lot. Like, hey, you were this good last year. Can you do it again? That will be, I think, it definitely should possibly maybe overlooked on my list of things that we didn't put on the list. But number 1 for me, what's next for Jalen Hurts? Is there another level to him that he can get to with the new offensive coordinator? We saw a very good Jalen Hurts last year, but at times, people ask questions about Hurts. Hey, what's going on here? Is there something that he could do better? There's been a lot of talk about him this offseason. What's the next iteration, if there is another iteration of Jalen Hurts? Is he continuing to ascend? Is he plateauing? Is he flatlining? Is that okay if he does? What kind of role will he have in the offense this year? I think last year, obviously, was kind of uneven, but very good. And, how many quarterbacks in Super Bowl lore are a guy who throws for under 200 yards a game?
Well, I even wrote about that for Philly Voice last week. There are only like 5 quarterbacks who have averaged, who had the numbers that he had last year, which is like fewer than 3,000 yards and fewer or the same or fewer than 18 passing touchdowns and won a Super Bowl. And there's just not, that's a very small list. And so it'll be, yes, I agree with you. I think it's going to be interesting. That falls in line with my opening up of the offense, number 4 thing. And what is that next step? I really would like to spend some time this year. I'm going to try to do this more, talking to some NFL personnel, but some real quarterbacks. I'd like to talk to more quarterbacks about this. Maybe I'll try to get Ron Jaworski on the phone, because Jalen Hurts did some incredible things last year, just from a stylistic standpoint. If you go back to the championship game against Washington and even the Super Bowl, I don't believe he attempted or completed any passes between the numbers within 20 to 30 yards. He obviously had the dagger to Jalen Hurts on a post, but he really did not. He basically ignored that whole part of the field and cater to his strengths, which is throwing outside the numbers. And I just wonder if quarterbacks who have played the position and succeeded think that he can continue to have a really successful career that way, or if eventually he is going to have to be able to utilize that part of the field more.
That to me, right, the quarterback thing, and it just, he in itself, he's a guy, he's not rated high enough. He's won the Super Bowl. He's the MVP of the Super Bowl. He's not rated high enough. Is he better than this guy? I mean, he's always going to be a story because of the nature of he's not a slam dunk 100%, star player in everybody's mind. I think there are a lot of people out there that acknowledge that he's very, very, very good and important. But what is next for Jalen Hurts? And then there's so many other stories that, did not make our top 5. I think one of yours that maybe I overlooked is the repeat offenders. I think that was a good one with that group of guys there. Is Zach Bond going to be the same player? Is Cooper DeJean going to have another, great year? Or teams watch tape now and see what he struggles with? Same with Quinyon Mitchell. I think another guy you got to throw into the mix there that you got to keep an eye on is who replaces Milton Williams, and do you get the same level of production out of that spot? And how does that affect, my number 4 story, which was Jalen Carter, the defense as a whole? How do 5 new pieces fit into that defense? That to me is something we got to keep an eye on too.
That was my number 5. It was Moro Ojomo, Jordan Davis, and Ty Robinson. How can they? It's not about. I just think we all fall into a trap. Moro Ojomo played really well in the snaps that he played. He played about 36% of the snaps last year. And so it would be easy to draw a line from X to Y to say, well, then he's just going to fill in Milton Williams' snaps. But that's sort of appreciates just how well and how dominant Milton Williams played. Now, maybe that's a function of just being next to Jalen Carter. I don't know. We'll find out because Milton Williams ain't playing next to Jalen Carter, although Christian Barmore was pretty good, but it's not Jalen Carter. We'll find out. But again, now that Moro is going to be asked to play more and the magnifying glasses on him, it's a lot. So we'll see. We'll see what the plan is there.
Yeah, and you mentioned Ty Robinson, too. There was a lot of people excited about that pick. Does he have any impact this year? Do the Eagles say, look, you're kind of redshirting this year, or no, you're getting thrown into the fire, and we're hoping that we get something from you? I think that's something that we'll find out in this camp as well, because you're going to start to hear, hey, this guy's really standing out earlier. No, he's behind, and they have some other guys that they like. That's something that I think you mentioned his name. I haven't heard his name really since the second week of the post-draft. Is, hey, they drafted a guy that they had a lot of excitement about.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, what I've seen from Vic Fangio is if you can play, he'll play you, right? So he was already starting to play Jilix Hunt last year after a couple of weeks of playing well on special teams. So if Ty Robinson can play, he'll play. He may not play a ton of snaps because Moro Ojomo might be killing it, but he'll play.
Yeah. All right. We'll see it all unfold. Starts tomorrow when they report. Wednesday, when Jeff is back for football at 4, they will have practiced for the first time this season to get ready, and the Super Bowl season will officially be behind them. All right, 5 biggest stories at Eagles camp. There you go. Those 5 and more, of course, and we'll be covering them all here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks, Jeff.
See you, Mike.
All right, there's Geoff Mosher, everybody. Of course, from the Inside the Birds podcast, Football at 4 here. Every day you get football at 4 o'clock on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.